Welcome everyone to the Team Dynasty call tonight. My name is Alethea Cox and I'm a diamond coach, and I say that so proudly. Today's content is going to be kind of what kind of stirred my mind into what I wanted to talk about tonight is when I was watching a YouTube video of Brendan Burchard, and it was titled How Incredible Successful People Think. And that kind of interwoved with my personal story and my personal journey. First of all, I'm a wife. I'm the mother of 3 children. I have a 24 and a 22-year-old boys, and then I have an angel that's 13. So that they're going to be part of my story that I'm going to share with you here further down. You know, my journey with Beachbody is quite interesting. My entrance to Beachbody actually came in from the time when Beachbody was an infomercial company. I'd been working in the direct sales corporately, as well as I built a small direct sales business as well. And I'd heard about this infomercial company that sold products, fitness products, and that they were going to turn that into direct sales. And I thought, how are they going to do that? Not ever thinking that they weren't going to, but like, I was so anxious to see how the unfolding of all this was going to take place. And so I was at the time working in bank acquisition when the market dropped and people were getting in financial trouble. I was helping go find liquid cash to purchase these bank loan portfolios. And what I learned very quickly is that I'm a people person that likes to give them opportunity, not a people person that has to go to them and talk to them about defaulted loans and taking everything that we can to make that deficit. And I just found myself very quickly in the wrong side of things. And so I contacted some recruiters and they said, hey, you know, that Beachbody company is looking at investing and moving forward into their sales team. And I thought, just get me in the door. So lo and behold, in 2011, January actually of 2011, I got hired on with Beachbody as the director of sales for the Western United States. In my very first meeting, it was so funny because we flew out to Florida. We were getting ready to go on a leadership cruise. It was a Success Club cruise. And I got to meet several new coaches, but one in particular that was there that night was Lindsay Mattaway. And I remember sitting there watching this, you know, just soaking everything in because I was new, kind of like you, and I was trying to understand the elements and how I can make an impact. And I just really got caught up in the energy and the heart. And I remember sitting there totally withdrawal at the edge, just like mouth half dropped and just like, this is such positive energy and these are such good people. And my boss at the time, which is still at Beachbody today, Jeff Hill, I looked at him and I said, Jeff, I could do this. You know, I might be on the wrong side here. And he just, the only thing he did was he kind of hit me in the shoulder and was like, don't be talking like that. But I had a great journey of 3 years with them. And then in November of 2013, I found a mass in my abdomen that we had removed, and it was very scary. But God presents things to us in ways that we get our message. And so my message at the time was, here I've helped so many amazing people grow their businesses, but at the same time I was very envious that they had time freedom and that they could outmake income-wise what I made, and it was all in positive, good energy. And I mentioned I have a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old. They've only known me as a career person, and my career, fortunate or unfortunately, always took me away from my home. And I remember working for Beachbody, and nobody knew this. And by the way, I do have to say, Carl and our organization corporately at Beachbody is top-notch. You cannot find a better job. You get paid extremely well for what you do. It's very fair. You're worth what you're paid with what you're worth. And so there was absolutely no qualm at all in terms of what the corporate structure was. But what I was missing, and when I got sick, was that I was fanatical about helping people just like a coach is. I was already into fitness as a personal trainer and an instructor in group fitness, and everything started to speak to me. And I was in this business meeting in California shortly after that, and the nanny did not make it. So I was living in Utah. For those of you that don't know, the sales office is stationed in Provo, Utah, and the headquarters is stationed in Santa Monica. And I was in Santa Monica because, one, that was my territory, and two, we were doing some meetings there. And my daughter communicated to me through her cell phone that the nanny wasn't there to pick her up. And I'd relocated for Beachbody with no family, and I was just absolutely devastated. And that was the confirmation, the last bit of confirmation that I knew that these things in my path were being presented. Success by coaches, getting sick and having to really address my health and evaluating my long-term goals, and then really looking at my kids and realizing that my 24 and 22-year-old pretty much was grown up without their mom there, and looking at this last child in my home and being like, you know what, I can do this. And so I got courageous, and unfortunately I cannot work at Beachbody as a coach. So I put together a plan of 12 months to kind of get my legs underneath me, because we always say be in it a year from now, and that the compounding really kicks in. And so that's really kind of been my journey as to where I'm at today. Why Beachbody? I just have seen so many good individuals be able to help others genuinely. And for those 3 years I worked for Beachbody Corporate, and even this last year, it'll be a year in September, I didn't know there was negativity. It was so positive. It tipped the scale of positiveness. So for those of you that have ever wondered, Gal, is Beachbody the right thing for me? And especially if you're getting started and you're making an investment, I promise you what I told people corporately and what I remind myself, and Scotty, by the way, has been amazing at using my own words right back at me that I use to help him and so many others. But it's just, you might work really, really hard for not much pay in the beginning, and your reward really is when it's genuine and you're a go-giver and you get that return from the people you're working with, and they got to drop some pounds, or they started realizing that they were all locked up and not treating themselves good because it was emotional stuff, and they just needed a friend. They needed a positive environment. And so, with this positive environment going on, I just didn't realize that, friends were worrying about the economy or, those kind of things. Not saying I had my head completely in the sand, but that scale was tipped, and it was just so beautiful. And I tend to live there today. I can tell you I worked corporately for direct sales companies. I have good friends in most all of them. The only thing I can tell you is I chose this because it was absolutely the best energy I've ever seen. And when we start off, we don't get paid a lot, but I can tell you very quickly, if you stay consistent, then you get paid way more than the time that you put into it, because you cared, you gave love, and you showed yourself as being a go-giver. And that's what creates success. So with that being said, that's a little bit about who I am and my story. I really probably shouldn't share much of the corporate side of things, other than I want to give you validation. If you or any of your coaches are trying to come up with, making those decisions, then I want individuals to know, I was a healthy, paid corporate individual, and I have to be careful what I say here, but I'm not going to deny it was definitely in the six figures, and it was a perfect job, and I left because this, for me and the things that I wanted, is absolutely hands down the best opportunity I could ever dream of having. Being in positive energy, helping people, and being in a passion area, not to mention that the Shakeologies absolutely helped me. There was no mistake why I had an abdominal mass. I've had lots of autoimmune disorders, celiac disease, and malabsorbing anemia for years, and Shakeologies totally helped me turn my health around. I'm way healthier in my 40s than I ever was, so I just gave you a little bit. Way healthier in my 40s than I was in my 20s and 30s. So that's a little bit about me and why Beachbody, and I kind of wanted you to have a little bit of that background as I kind of go through tonight's presentation. A couple of things that Scotty and I have talked about is, I remember I was so good at coaching others, and then I get to my own business, and it's like sometimes I get in this floundery of like, okay, what's next? What am I supposed to be doing? And those words come back, or that personal development, and I have to go back and read some of my old books, and it's like, oh yeah, I can't believe I missed that. But really, for all of us, it's knowing our destination and not necessarily getting caught up in how. but just really, what's the destination? Like, if we're navigating ourselves and we're waking up every day and trying to do this Beachbody thing, we don't have a destination, or we don't have that goal that we're getting to, then we kind of flounder and we struggle. Now, I get the opportunity because I had to retire my job to work full-time, which is a very scary thing. I think that for those of you that are working for part-time, all you need to know right off is your destination. And then you need to have the successful person's mentality or attitude. And I think after tonight, you might see some things in yourself, or some things that give you confirmation of like, all right, I'm on the right path, or I'm going to tweak that just a little bit and make that a little better. So know your destination and don't get too caught up on the how. Just know that there's a certain way people think and how they behave in order to create success. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. The first thing I want to tell you is I just want to confirm to you that success has been figured out. And this was, again, from Brendan Burchard. You know, when he said it, I'm like, absolutely, it's been figured out. If one coach ahead of you ever got to the status, the rank, the income, the number of people that they've helped before you, then it's proven. Its success has been figured out. And so what you can rely on is that it's been done and you can do it. And even if it's not been done, it still can always be done, right? It's still the same mentality. But for those of us that maybe wake up every morning and we have to take this fear, maybe like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, or what if I don't hit my goal? I always say taking that courage is energy and turning that energy into action. But it really is success. Success has been figured out. And so there are pathways. You have lots of support here within amongst our teams. I love going to YouTube and watching others outside of this company or outside of our own business, excuse me, having success and learning from them. But really what's the differentiator is how we manage our mind and how we manage our day. So the difference between the unsuccessful and the successful individuals are usually under those two categories. Managing our mind, how are we thinking? Are we thinking like the successful guy, or are we thinking about the under the mentality of an unsuccessful person? And then the second thing is okay, what are they doing? Are we, you know, how are they managing their day? And that drops down into not only how are they managing their day, but what is the action and activities that they're doing to create those results? And so, you know, we've had a lot of trainings about like the 10 things you should do every day for like the power hours, and all of those kind of things are going to greatly, greatly equip you. But what I want you to understand is that those that are creating that success, the key is in their management of their day and the activities that they actually do. So successful people really, they pay attention to what they're thinking. And most often it's second nature. They don't even think anything different. For those of us that maybe need to have some course correction, it takes just a little bit of practice and a little bit of focus, but we absolutely all can get there. So that and then managing our day and checking and making sure that we're creating traction in the time that we allocate for action-based activities. And an action-based activity is an activity that creates a result that gets us closer to our goal. So again, it goes back to the three vital behaviors of invite, personal development, and then being proof the product works. So unsuccessful individuals, what will happen a lot of times, first of all of us have gone down different journeys. We've never done something before, right? And so at that critical time, depending on how we look at that, determines right away if we're going to be successful or unsuccessful. So for example, an unsuccessful person, if you go back and you say, okay, there's two individuals, right? And I don't, you know, I was going to give you the scenario of how the plane started off, and I don't remember who the other maker was. But basically, you had a guy that had a lot of funding, and he was trying to get a plane created, and then you had the Wright brothers that actually were doing the same thing, and they were just kind of doing it in their backyard, right, kind of thing. And what happened is that some people would automatically say, no, we can't fly, and the other ones were like, okay, so let's figure this out, and how are we going to do this? So keys are in the unsuccessful versus successful. When they have exact opportunities in front of them, what's the difference between the guy that does it and the guy that doesn't? And again, it's in the mind and how they think, and it's what they do on their action in the daily basis. So an unsuccessful person might be post was things like, I don't know how to do that. You know, any new thing that we go try, easily we could say that. Easily. One, it's acceptable. It's true. You know, most everybody would be like, oh yeah, you don't know how to do that. You've never done that before, right? So if we really wanted to achieve something, we've never done it before, we may have to do things that we haven't done before, right? So I don't know how to do that. Another showstopper is I don't have that, right? For example, if it's a resource or they need a tool of some kind, individuals, a big one for us here in the Beachbody business, I don't have time. You know, I look at Scotty Hobbs and David Ingram, and I personally worked with those guys. When those guys had no time, they just decided to make planned neglect. And what that is they looked at their life and said, what absolutely can be put off to put some importance that's going to take me somewhere? And they planned that neglect. So they didn't have time. They didn't create an extra hour, and they both have been greatly rewarded from that. So that could be an example of I don't have that, I don't have time. I'm not like that. You know, sometimes individuals, if you're an introvert like me, believe it or not, and I keep talking to more and more coaches and they say they're an introvert, and I'm like, nah, it doesn't feel like it. And they're like, no, I am. And then I look at myself and I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. We put on a great smile. We definitely handshake. We because of the love of the people, we slide into that. But I could easily say, in order to be successful at Beachbody, I have to be able to be social and I have to be fun. And I'm not always those things because, you know, I'm kind of serious and, you know, I have my skill sets in a different area. So I could have easily said, or any of us could easily say, I'm not like that when we stereotype. So that would all put us all into a category of unsuccessful. So when we're looking at ourselves and what our challenges are, we got to make sure that we're behaving and answering these things in a different mindset. So the successful mindset really is scheduling time and resources for the things we don't know how to do. Like the great thing I learned when I was young being mentored in my career and have been able to carry it out with me is I never worried about not knowing how to do something or not having an answer. I may have worried about where I was going to go to get it or if somebody had that answer, but I always looked at everything and everyone as a resource or a tool. So scheduling time to, for example, if you didn't know how to do social media and you don't have any friends, and so there's nowhere market for you to go to, then scheduling time to really break down, if you're going to choose to go that direction, break down, okay, what is Twitter? What's Instagram? What's Pinterest? What's Snapchat? You know, how do you utilize Facebook? And study that. So successful people really actually will go and study those things. I worked with, I've had a fortunate opportunity to work with very prominent individuals. And in most cases, more than half of those individuals outside of direct sales, half of those individuals were self-made, meaning that they came up with an idea or a concept and they just hunkered down and they scheduled time and they put resources to learn about it, just enough to understand it, and then they made that step out of the box forward to do it. So scheduling time, successful individuals actually allocate their own time and resources to go figure it out, to go get that skill set, to go learn what it is that they're going to need to have in place to be able to get to the destination, because they weren't the unsuccessful thinking, I don't know how, or, you know, those kind of things. So the next one is successful people is they think about what they do have. Successful people really use everything as a resource. They never think, oh, I don't have this. They think of everything as a resource, and they're almost like problem solvers. And so if there was one thing I could tell you to write down on your note, be a problem solver. You know what? Learn to ask questions. Learn to be resourceful at Googling and being open to others that maybe have further down a journey and might have knowledge in an area that you need. But, you know, resourcefulness is so powerful, and we all have it. We have so much already available to us. And I remember I went to high school with this guy that right now has created a huge construction company. He's done very, very well for his family. And I remember, my husband and I were talking to him, and he said, I'm going to go build a house. And that's kind of where the start of things was. And we're like, okay, so have you ever built a house? Do you know how? And he's like, no. And they're like, well, how are you going to do this? He's like, I went and bought a book, and, I stopped right now today and looked at our lesson that we're going to talk about on what the elements are in a successful person's mind. And I was like, how did he know that he could go build a house? He just was like, well, I'll figure it out and I'm going to do it. And he made the statement and he got the book and he went and bought the parts and he built his own first house, which led to so much more for him. So, be resourceful and use the resources of what you do have available to you. He knew he could read a book. He knew that if he was in English and he learned certain things and he took the test, he passed the test. So he knew that. He just applied it to another element of his life. And I know I make that sound very elementary and basic, but successful people, when you're around them, it is that easy for them. So if it's not easy for us, all we have to do is be like, oh, I get it. And stop and reward yourself for the times that you didn't know how to do something for the first time, right? And you created success with it because you left yourself clues. And in that environment, you did have more successful thinking. So the next thing is we have to have the I can attitude. And the I can attitude is never like, I can't do that. The NT can't be in there, or the cannot be in there. So having an I can attitude is just that relentless drive of like, I can do this. I remember when I first started to run competitively, I was starting to trail run, and I went to Minneapolis and I was doing this Freedom Celebration run, and it was actually a 10K. My feet were hurting so bad, and I was getting in the last stretch of it. It was kind of just a fun run, and actually there was an individual there that I'd worked with and mentored for a period of time, and why he was put on that corner that day in that specific spot of that 10K course, I will never know, but I will tell you this: he left me a lasting impact that has absolutely, completely changed the outcome of my life. When my feet were hurting so bad, I was actually getting impact fractures. So I thought, this is just a fun run. There's no reason to go kill yourself. And I was getting tired and fatigued. And because I was focusing on the pain of my feet, it was really starting to strain on me. And I just remember coming around this corner and I started to slow down in my pace. And then all of a sudden I start hearing this guy just screaming at me. And I look up, like it startled me. And it was, I'm going to say his name's Rod. His real name's Rod. I got to be careful on his last name. But Rod was there, and he caught me almost giving up. He caught me in the I don't have to or I cannot attitude. And he changed that for me for the rest of my life. And he started screaming at me. And I remember he's actually a coach for football for kids, kind of like a Tommy Migrant. And he's bent with his hands on his thighs. And he's just veins poking out of his neck, and he's screaming at me. His fists are all pumped, and he is like, felt like his neck and his head and his upper body were like 4 feet out in front of his feet, just like trying to get as close to my face, even though he was clear across the street. And I heard him, and he said, "Don't you dare give up. You pick it up, you pick it up." And he started screaming at me not to give up, not to give up. And you know what? Sometimes we have to be that for our coaches. But what I learned with that is, in a successful mechanism, I will never say I cannot. And every time I start to wonder and look at my life, and when I want to give up, I cannot tell you how many times that visual replays and his voice goes off in my head. That was probably almost 20 years ago. I think I was 22, 23 years ago, or 22, 23 years old when that happened. And it was so powerful. It's so powerful today. You see the emotion on me. So powerful, because I cannot tell you how many things I have triumphed. I've had a beautiful, beautiful life. And if he wouldn't have said that to me and I would have stopped, I don't know I would have ever got that lesson in a different way. I ride a 213-mile bike race in one day. That's a lot of pedaling with 3 major mountain passes and through 3 states. And you know what? I tell a race, just keep pedaling. It's one more pedal, it's one more pedal. Why? Because Rod that day busted me on not realizing that you got to have the not in what you do. And so with that successful attitude, I just wanted to share that kind of a story. If you don't have that, dig deep and find it and make it your principle in your life. These successful principles. Be resourceful, right? Learn what you do have and utilize every element, relationships, knowledge. If you've passed a test and been tested on something before and you can, and you have to learn something new, you have the ability to learn. Know that. Then have the I can attitude. Absolutely unrelentless, have the I can attitude. Now, other characteristics that successful people have is they have a discipline. And I'm not real good as a coach with this discipline. To be honest with you, I've got a 13-year-old that drags me all over, and she thinks that I'm her caddy and cab driver and her banker and, you know, her cook and her maid and all of those things. Love her to death, and it's hard to say no when I work so much career and I chose to come home to do this, but I'm not real disciplined. I'll let her really get into my mojo of when I should be working on this, you know, power hour content. So be disciplined, and if you're not disciplined, be real with yourself and create that discipline. I'm working with a coach, and she's really struggled with finding time. She's my age, and she has a little 2-year-old running around. may great blessings be with them, because that's a lot. And she's just, you know, she's frazzled. She raises this baby up on her own, and she takes care of a few other younger children as well in her home. And I was like, you know, you just got to create a discipline. So she started off in September of last year, just starting to get some workouts in. And then she started to eat healthy. And then she got kind of excited about this Beachbody coaching thing. And then she signed up as a coach in February. And then she shared it with some of her friends that saw her transformation. But she really, really has a strong, compelling reason to build Beachbody. Not only is she amazing and beautiful and a great go-giver at heart and helps those individuals, but she really has some needs that Beachbody can give to her on a financial side. And so one of the things is sitting down and finding a discipline, creating one behavior at a time and making it a habit and then adding to it. So the first one was like, get up every morning, get your workouts in. Get up every morning, and she's Buddhist, so she does her chants, and then she does her personal development. And then she'll make sure that she has healthy meals and drinks her shake and all that kind of thing. So as she was progressively moving that to create that discipline, now she actually has allocated time, and it's been small goals. Okay, start 2 new conversations, follow up with 2 more from the ones that you've done, right? So creating this discipline. So start somewhere. If you're not good with it, start somewhere. You don't have to be organized. You just have to be disciplined. Organization absolutely helps, but just be disciplined. Block your hours, find your time, and be committed to your destination. That discipline and the other trainings that you get of content and what to do with your time in that discipline will get you to success. The other thing I absolutely have to tell you, you cannot fake it here at Beachbody. You have to be a go-giver. Something inside here has to really care about who and you're talking to and what they're doing, because it's passion, it's love, it's nurturing, it's care. They don't want what we have. They can buy those videos on infomercial. They can go to the gym. What they want is they want that layer of intimacy to know that they matter and that people care about them. And you can't fake being a go-giver. You know what I find with most individuals that are not go-giver, and I fall complete blame in that too. I had some major trials and tribulations when I was growing up. That really hampered my ability to want to even give any, but I was a nice person outward, but I'd never receive. Like, I was so scared of being hurt that I was just shut off. So being a go-giver was only through a small magnitude. It wasn't until I started to realize that I was so severely hurt and that I could control my situation that I really, truly turned into a go-giver. And the difference was being nice and giving love. I was always nice. I always cared. If anybody had something that they needed to talk about or they had a pain, I was right there crying with them. But if you're not a go-giver, those people know that. And they're going to find a different place to get what they need to be successful. See, it's not just about moving the body and eating healthy. It's about caring about this. It's about creating community. It's about bettering their life and putting them in a positive environment, because we may be the only area of their life that is positive and giving them good endorphins, right? So be a go-giver. And I would challenge you, if you think you're really good at being a go-giver, go 10 times balls out. Just go for it. Be as generous and just as meaningful with your time and as compassionate as you ever can be, because I will tell you, those individuals that can do that, and I struggle with it because of that hurt thing. Every now and then I have to like tell myself it's okay, keep moving forward. But when you really can do that, it creates great momentum. People really know who you are. They see you for what and who you are, and you can be extremely successful just by being a great go-giver. Execution. You know what? If you say you've got a goal and you have a destination, you have to execute. You have to get good about your discipline. You have to be good about your skills. You have to get good at being those go-givers, but you have to execute. You can't just keep, I'm going to watch another webinar. I'm going to study the back office a little more. I'm going to listen to another success story or whatever. You have to execute on that plan. So successful individuals, they execute. They go and get those resources, right? They get the skills and the resources they need, but they execute. And in most cases, almost all cases, they will tell you that the person that executed didn't have all the answers. So if they were starting a new business in a new industry, they didn't know that industry a whole lot. They just knew it from a more peripheral standpoint. They may have wanted to know how a bakery worked, and so they're in the bakery as the wash person, so that they can talk to the baker, and they can talk to the vendors as the products and stuff comes shipping in. Right? So they're learning it a little bit peripherally just to see, okay, I see how this organization is operated and ran, and then they go set up their own bakery. So don't get caught up in having to know everything at Beachbody. Execute based off of what you do know. Start talking to people and sharing what you know works, and give value. And, give over the top absolute value. If you know you can give value by just a little bit, go 110. Go all the way with giving value, and measure yourself. Ask yourself, am I giving enough to this individual? The right kind of stuff? Tough love sometimes? Those kind of things. So characteristics of a true person that's successful is they're disciplined, they're a go-giver, they know how to execute, and they give unbelievable, dramatic value. Now, what I want to talk to you about, and why you needed those pens and paper that I mentioned earlier, is I want you to take on a piece of paper, I want you to split that in half. And on the top of that, on one side, I want you to write challenges. And I don't mean like Beachbody Challenge and challenge groups and stuff like that. I mean like the hard stuff. So I'm setting your mind for that right now. And then on the other side of the paper, I want you to write strengths. Okay? So take that piece of paper, put it in half, challenges on one side, strengths on the other. Now at the top, I want you to write goal right above it. Okay, now for most of you and most of us, one of the things that our support teams have always tried to encourage is have those short-term goals. So I would ask you, if you had a goal last month, or maybe we're here on the last day of this month, do you have a goal this month? And if you did, I want you to write down what that goal is. So write down what your goal was, and then you can even answer if you made it or you did not. Now, I'm not asking you to do this to take you into a big, deep, dark space in case you didn't and you fell short of your goal. What I really want you to do is I want you to see just a couple of things real quick. Okay, so now you've got the goal that you had last month. You've also maybe answered if you did it or you didn't do it. And then I want you to look at that piece of paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be silent for about 2 to 3 minutes. And I want you to think about everything, every skill, every activity that you have to do in your Beachbody business. And I want you to put it on the side of the paper if it's a strength for you in the business or if it's a challenge for you in the business. So for example, one of my strengths is getting on the phone, talking to my coaches. Not a problem. Love them dearly, want to know how they're doing and that kind of thing. So I have regular weekly calls with those individuals. Not everybody, but the ones that I need to have my time with. Maybe a challenge that I'm really struggling with, to be honest with you guys, I'm a person-to-person, belly-to-belly girl, and I know I was a COO for a technology company, but I just had to tell the IT department how I wanted a cell phone to look. I didn't have to build it. I just knew functionally how you and I would want it to work and what it could do. So the technology side, and because I'm a little bit older generation and I didn't really learn much about how to utilize social media to benefit myself, I'm a little bit behind the curve. So one of the things I've been trying to do is self-study. And so one of the things I might put on there is moving my business away from myself and being a bigger attractor to those that don't know me and generating new audiences. That might be a challenge area. So again, I'm going to be quiet. Everything you do, skill set or activity that you have to have or that you do in your Beachbody business goes on that paper either under challenge or strength, and I'm going to be quiet. I know you're probably scratching your head and continuing to think. I'm just going to have you just write those last few things down. Perfect. Okay. Now, you know, what I find with individuals when they go through this exercise is that paper that you listed those skills and things down on left a clue for you. Just like they were able to find the clues on the way a successful person thinks versus an unsuccessful person. And on when you look at your goal, whether you achieved it or you fell short of that, do you see on that paper why that happened? Because technically, like for example, when I worked with my own coaches and when I worked corporately with coaches, what you're looking for is I'm looking for the 1 + 1 = 2, right? So I'm looking to make sure that everything makes sense. So if I felt like I worked really, really hard and my points didn't come through at the end of the day, I got to know what that is or why. And usually there's something on that paper that will give you those clues. I was just reading the notes here. So what I want you to do, and some of your homework, is I really want you to, most of us never say focus in your weakness areas to make it a strength. But sometimes if that weakness area, right, it goes back to the successful person's thinking. If, in my case, that social media of understanding, and by the way, love the Instagram linking content here. I actually cut and pasted so I have it for later. But, if I really know, I'm hearing all these coaches are successful in that area, that is not my strength. But I know in a lot of cases, generous leaders before me with lots more accomplishment than I would ever claim to have had will tell you not to focus on your weaknesses. But if it's absolutely viable, and all I got to do is go do a college course, not necessarily a college course, but learn from the streets course to figure this out, and it could dramatically change the face of my business and get me further down to that destination. Because I'm telling you, when I hit my goals, there's going to be a lot of beautiful things. It's not just in this house, it's in a bigger house, And so I really have passion to hit that goal. I got to look to see what am I doing right and what's holding me back. And be willing and courageous to take that successful person's attitude on some of those things that might be holding me back in the challenge area. Okay, that's the first thing that I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is you may know why you're not successful in this business. And now it might even be on that paper, and it's one of two things. Now, the example I gave you was skill set. And it might be also a little belief system. I'm not sure. I'll have to dig a little deeper in myself for that. But usually what I find with individuals that holds them back, like we get started and we get so far and then it's kind of like roadblock, I've sat stagnant for 3 months, is usually one of those two things. It's a belief system or it's a skill set. And so quickly what I want to make sure is that we identify what it is that's holding you back, right? Your business is moving forward at the rate that you're telling it to do based off of the activity and the influence of energy that you're putting into it. It could be time. It could be maybe doing the wrong things. You could need a skill set increase like me. So there's a lot of things to look at. But one of the key things I want to make sure is that when I'm working with individuals, a lot of times I find a belief system issue, right? Like, okay, if, there's been lots of studies. If you think that your cap is making $100 a week, subconsciously and consciously, then you're going to have a hard time getting past that $100 a week. And it's really interesting when you work with individuals to find out if it's a belief system and when you find that belief system. I worked with a coach at Beachbody that was a diamond coach. And her rankings for elite were huge, like up in the top 50s, right? So you've got a diamond, newer diamond in the top 50s. So that means she's got a lot of activity going on, but it's not showing in status. And when you looked at her coaches, she had 50% of her coaches emerald, but no one a diamond. And that was a belief system, had nothing to do with her skill set. And it wasn't until she realized it was a belief system and she had that conversation in her home with her husband and was like, shoot, why not? Why don't we do this Beachbody thing, and resolved what those belief systems were that set her free. I'm telling you, you're going to see her at the top this year, and I will love when we get to see and hear her story from her. So know if you've got a skill set that you need to address or a belief system issue. And belief system issues are really crushing it through our personal development. We get to seek inside, ask our own questions. One of the things, I don't know if it's about turning 40, but the last several years, people ask me, hey, Alethea, what do you think about this? Or what do you believe? And I'll be like, what do I believe? And I will assess my own belief systems, and I even sometimes change them because that belief could have been something I grabbed when I was 16 that has no application for me today. And thank goodness I'm doing it in my 40s because I've really put some handicaps in what I could attain. And what I find is I'm no different, and I'm talking in my because we're not interactive, I'm talking personally about me rather than trying to, get nods of heads or, people saying, yeah, that's like me. So I'm just kind of going in limbo here, sharing my own story, but I didn't need that belief system anymore. It doesn't need to protect me. It doesn't serve me. And so I actually am finding I have a lot of belief systems I question. Like, it's not uncommon for me to have those conversations with myself and be like, you know what, I don't believe that anymore. Yeah, let's go. And my belief system is vanished out of the way and I can move forward. Or I can really address what that can look like, right? Like, I had money issues. I made a lot of money and I had money issues because I watched individuals not be, in my own judgment, real good with it. Sometimes we take new things and we may not give gratitude. And I was like, in my faith and in my belief system, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't be like that. Instead of saying that's just an example for me to learn from. And I can accept every dollar ever because it's going to get used for the right things, making right choices that I can do that are right for my family and start these foundations and work in the humanitarians. And so I want every dollar now. So those belief systems get crushed. And so one of the things I would tell you is you're looking down those challenge lists. If it's not a skill set issue and you can go learn it, then is it a belief system? And you've got to get through that. So many individuals won't push themselves in putting themselves out there because there's some fear. People, they feel like they're going to be prejudged. And yes, personal development does help us with that. But what even helps us more is being real with it. Being real and recognizing, God, I just don't do it because I'm afraid people are going to judge me. And then I want you to ask those questions. So if they judge you, is that going to make a difference? Is that going to make a difference for you? And if you answer yes, then we know you're still caught in your belief system. And if you answer no, then I know you're going to take more risks, you're going to get more uncomfortable, and you're going to move your business forward. So with that, one of the things I wanted to make sure is that we're looking at those challenges that are holding us back, get the skill set that we need, address what we need so we can all move forward and see each other at the top. So focusing on those challenges and strengths, identifying if it's a skill set or a belief system, and moving forward from where we're at. And sorry, here's your last slide. And I just want to close with fear and faith. As we kind of like, the reality is we ask people to do personal development. I'm doing personal development for a reason. I know when I left Beachbody, I did a lot of personal development. I told people what to do. And thank goodness, I have been so lucky to have a husband that can just take a deep breath with me and say such profound things that changed my life. And I was telling him, I said, when I left Beachbody, it was partly to like replace and replenish what I left so I could support my family. But then also when I started hearing these stories of like the lady that's been beating the bank for 11 years that's a coach on my team, or the one that's like, I refuse to have my husband out of state anymore, working away from his family as his boys are growing up and missing family reunions and kids, to the one that's like, I spent the last 10 years going and getting a college education and working on myself, my own personal development, and I don't know where I fit in corporate America. And I can tell you, you have these stories over and over again, and that day hit me when I was like, oh my gosh, like, I haven't figured out this internet thing yet, like how to be successful with Instagram. And like, I'm okay at it, but not like rock star yet. Or you'd be seeing me on the leaderboards, but I will tell you I'm behaving beyond my status and it'll catch up with me. But also I had a belief system. That belief system was, I looked at my husband, I'm like, I'm the one that's done all this personal development. I'm the one that's been telling people to do this. And he said, Alethea, it's different being a coach, meaning like a coach that coaches an athletic team and being the player on the field. And even Scotty said, Alethea, you're so good at finding one that really wants it and encouraging him. He's like, you just got to get really good at recruiting. And my own self-doubt and my own fears came in. And then you've heard me say on this call, it was kind of snuck in there. Like I woke up fearful, like almost paralyzed, and having to take that fear and turn it into courage and using courage energy for faith. So I'm not the best rock star, and it's real. And I wanted you to know that I don't come to you with all the answers. I don't come to you perfect. I come to you real, not because I was at Beachbody corporate and I should be, you know, people expect me to be a 10-star right now and top rank in the company. I have my own story, my own journey. And, you know, I'm growing more in this business personally than I ever would in my business, but there's going to be a point in time when it changes. But fear and faith in this business are real, and that's why we ask you to do personal development. I wanted to share this with you, and a book, by the way, that this came from. It came from The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Unbelievable book, okay? I did not want to read another business book. I want to do personal development about how Alethea can be better. And my friend, actually my newest emerald that turned to emerald today, congratulations, Goldie, woo woo. She said, Alethea, you got to read this book. And I had it for 2 weeks. Scotty told me to read another book. I went to the bookstore and I'm like, I'm gonna read Scotty's book. It sounds better for me. But Shayla not only told me to read the book, she gave me the book to read, right? I'm at the bookstore denying it. And I went to Barnes & Noble. It should have had this book. It's the newest Joel Osteen book. They should have had it. I went to the airport to 2 different bookstores. They should have had this book. And you know what my message was? Alethea, read the book you were given. So I tell you, Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, absolutely amazing. And I ask all my new coaches to read it. But it addresses fear and faith. And they say they may seem like opposites, but they both have something in common. They both ask us to believe something that we cannot see. So fear and faith is believing something we can't see. Fear says believe the negative. Faith says believe the positive. And the only thing I can tell you is believe in yourself, believe in that positive. Keep moving forward. We have coaches just like us with stories that are hurting, waiting for us to give them an opportunity to be a better person, to be able to have new choices in their life. And with that being said, I just kind of wanted to wrap up. Does anybody have any questions? Awesome. With that, guys, I just want to wish you well. And I've taken a real quick glance of all the names on the call here tonight. I'm so excited to see you guys rank advance, do this journey with me. I need you. I need people to have your stories and see, oh my gosh, she got it before me. I don't even care. But my question is, how'd she do it? So my definite whole heart of your success with you. There's abundance out there. We can all do this and we can help so many more. With that being said, I'm going to tune off tonight and hope to see you guys at the top. Bye.